and welcome to Keystroke Live for this Wednesday, November 12th edition, a snowy day here in Colorado. So it's got everybody excited to get out on the slopes. But my name is David Hunsinger, and I'm going to be talking about year-end procedures today. I'm going to cover a big variety of things today, and then next week Lynn is going to talk about variance, which a lot of people do at year-end, and kind of give you a whole encapsulated view of how to do physical inventory and use the variance function. Remember, Keystroke Live, Wednesday, same time, same place. We will be taking the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I think that's the 26th. We will be taking that one off, so we won't have any Keystroke Live that day. Today we're going to talk about what you do at the end of year and how to take care of your customers for the end of year. And I always like starting out by saying you don't really have to do anything. Keystroke is perpetual inventory. The information is all there. Nothing gets batched out or removed. So if you don't do anything, then you will be in good shape. Everything will work. So you really don't have to do anything. These are all things for accounting, inventory. Some people like doing, some don't. Things I think are good practices to do at the end of the year. So number one is the inventory value. Because Keystroke is perpetual inventory, when you run an inventory value report, which is a inventory database report with totals, that is of right here, right now. It's not of a specific time. So if you want to know your inventory value for the end of the year, you want to be sure to run that report. And the report I am talking about, if I switch over to Keystroke, and I am going to go into the report manager, and then I'm just hitting the letter I to select inventory, database, and I would just select a form. We'll say totals with profit, and looks like I've got everything in pretty good shape there. So when I run this report, and I know that's tough to see on the screen, I'll zoom in a little bit. When I run this report, I get my cost total, my price total, my profit total, everything that I need. So it's good to run this report at the end of the year. The other thing you can do, and what I do, is I create a different directory and copy the Keystroke data files into it, so I can always say, oh, well, heck, I want to go look at my inventory from the end of the year. Or, boy, it seems like an invoice changed. Let me go back and see if my current data that's in February here, if I look at a transaction from December, is it the same as my backup that I made on December 31st, and compare those two. So by doing a good backup, or even just creating an alternate directory with your Keystroke data files in it, you can always access that inventory value at the end of the year, which is often a good thing to go back and check out. Remember, when you run that report, I kind of blew through the setup there a little bit. There are some things here you can choose, like in stock only. Some people like that, so you don't see zeros. Sometimes you like leaving that off so that when you're doing that end of month report or end of year report, you can see, okay, my widget A I had 10 of, and widget B I had 0 of. So by leaving that in stock only turned off, then I get all the zero value things, so I have a record of what I didn't have, which is often important to people, just like having a record of what you do have. But remember, it doesn't ask you for a date range. That's an inventory value report as of today, so you either want to run it at the end of the year, or be sure you got a set of data files where you can switch to and run it so that you can get that inventory value. If I go back to my PowerPoint slide, there is accounts receivable. really, again, you don't have to do anything, but it also is a report that is an absolute report as of today, right here, right now. So you would want to run the sales receivables report so you know what your accounts receivable are for the end of the year. And it's also a good time to look at your receivables, and if you've got old outstanding receivables that are never going to get paid, you can decide if you want to write them off, clean anything up that you need to, go through and look at credit memos and see if you need to apply credit memos to open invoices, because sometimes somebody will have a $300 credit memo with you and then spend it on an invoice, and so there's a $300 invoice, and if that credit memo isn't applied to the invoice, they're both still kind of sitting out there open. And yeah, 300 and 300 equals 0, but the invoice is still open and the credit memo isn't applied, so the end of the year is a good time to just double check those open credit memos so that you can apply them to the open invoices, tie them together, put them in a neat package, and forget about them. And what those look like, just so you get a feel, by back out of here, there's the sales receivables report. Aging is always good, and that just pops up a report of people and the amount due they have as of, again, you see there was no time date range asked for. It's as of right here, right now. And then you can also do a ROA payment with credit memos only. So this will give you a report of the open credit memos, and you can look and go and apply those if you need to. And we go back to my PowerPoint. Sales tax rates, okay, there we go. Sales tax rates, often you have sales tax rates changes January 1st, July 1st are big dates for that. Just to kind of give you a quick overview of what's important about that is Keystroke needs to know what the rate was and what the rate will be. So you don't have to wait until January 1st and go change the tax rate. You can do that now, and you specify a date range. You just say, hey, my 8% tax is going to end on December 31st. My 9% tax is going to start on January 1st, 2015. That way Keystroke knows what the tax rate was in August, September, October, November, December, and then what it will be in January, February, March. We have a nice PDF document we've created that when an end user calls us up and says, hey, I need to do that, we say, here, I'll send this to you. It'll step you through it step by step. Works real well. So just be aware you can get those tax rates changed ahead of times, or if there's a new tax, you create a new tax district. But it's a good time to look at, and it's something you can do right now today if you know the tax rate's going to change, and it'll just automatically take effect on January 1st. Database maintenance. People always think, oh, that's packing. Well, I don't really mean packing here. You can do that if you need to. The only reason to pack when you're not instructed by tech support or SBS is if you've deleted a whole ton of records, they're still in the file until you pack. Packing will permanently remove them. So really you don't have to do that pack, the database rebuild, read it, index unless you have to, or if you've deleted a whole bunch of records. What I mean by database maintenance, and there are things like total purchases. So you can go zero that out so that you'll be looking at year-to-date purchases rather than total purchases. You can go in and hide inventory records that you aren't using anymore. You can go search for duplicates and try to clean things up. So more of what I mean by database maintenance is cleaning up things that you want to keep track of year by year rather than actually rebuilding the file. And I'm just going to hit F12. After I get on this page, I'm going to hit F12 here, select customer, look at this record, and you see there's a total purchases field right here. I can use search and replace to go and change that. It happens to be 0 on this record, but I can change that to 0 for everybody, so they're starting January 1st with 0 total purchases. Same thing with inventory, and if I just hit F3 here to look at this, you've got on your quantities the total purchased and total sold down here. Again, you can make those fields available, use search and replace to change those if you want to know how many we purchased this year or sold this year. Those are just counter fields. So they'll just keep counting until they get all the way there. You can also hide records if you need to, or delete records if you need to, clean things up, make sure everything's in the right department. There's all that kind of database maintenance that is appropriate to do at the end of the year. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. Data backup. I'm a big fan of backup. I do a lot of backups. I do them to CDs and take one home. I do them to external hard drives. I have a daily backup I do that, so I have a directory 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on I have the last 7-day backups, and then when it's today, 1 gets renamed to 2, 2 gets renamed to 3, and I create a brand new one. So if I discover a problem from 2 days ago, I can go back to it. It's good to have a backup. It's also good to have that set of data that is end of year that you can maybe go ahead and get and look at if you need to. End of year is a great time to looking at updating Keystroke and updating other software like Windows. Make sure you've got all the security patches and updates for Windows created. It's a good time to look at updating Keystroke. Some people are a little not as busy during the holiday season. A lot of people are busy, so maybe they would look at updating in, say, January. You don't want to necessarily rush into it right before Thanksgiving if that's a busy time of year. But it is part of the payment security and PCI requirements to keep everything updated. So it's just a kind of that time to stop and assess what's going on. And talking about that stopping and assessing what's going on, it's a good time to review security as well. There may be passwords on switches, hubs, modems, wireless access points that maybe at the end of year is a good time to look at changing those to make sure those are updated. It's good to stop and say, okay, we're going to, in January, have a security training for our clerks so they know how to securely process credit cards. They know how to ask for a CVV2 or compare a signature. They know what the policies are, because a lot of times store owners and resellers and guys like me, I've got all that in my head and kind of assume everybody's looking at it. Sometimes I got to stop and say, this is how you're supposed to do it. And even people here will be like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. And so it's a good time to stop and review that training. If you have training materials, it's a good time to review it. Review the security options, update passwords, whether that's Windows, Keystroke, hardware, anything like that. It's a good time to kind of stop and review and assess that. Also part of PCI 3.0 are things like you're supposed to have system restore turned off on any machine that is processing credit cards. So it's a good time to review those new points with PCI and then apply them to your system like that. There's also a mandate to review PIN entry devices. PED is what PCI calls them. Like here is the Genius from Merchant Warehouse, but you're supposed to stop and look at all and check them for operation and tampering. So you test them. You know, if you look at the back here, there's these little stickers where the screws are so that you can see it hasn't been tampered with. And that's a new requirement that you review your payment hardware and make sure that it hasn't been tampered with, it's operating functionally, and everybody knows how to use it. So that, in a nutshell, are important things to do at the end of the year. It's also a good time to say, okay, what's going to be my strategy for going forward? Am I going to be entering a whole bunch of new inventory? Am I going to be getting rid of a whole bunch of dead items? There are those business decisions that you as the reseller can kind of go in there and poke the merchant and the shop owner a little bit to say, hey, assess these things. It's going to help make your business more profitable, and that makes you a more valued business partner.